Hello, welcome back to Top 5 Tuesdays, and today we're going to be talking about Quentin Tarantino, my top 5 favourite Quentin Tarantino films. And it's going to be more of a broader subject. I hope more people can get involved this time. A couple of weeks ago we did top 5 Steven Spielberg films, and a lot of people commented and gave their own top 5 lists and their thoughts on the film. So that was really cool, and I'm hoping for more of the same this time. So as always, leave the comments down below what you think of my list and Tarantino's films in general, where you'd rank them. And I can tell you right now that my list will not be the same as anyone else's. I mean, my list is really individual, and it's definitely going to draw some scathing comments, I'm sure, or at least some comments of bewilderment and surprise and shock and horror, but it's my top 5 favourite Quentin Tarantino films. Let's get right into it. Number 5, Reservoir Dogs. His first film, you know, kind of the film that was a part of that kind of early 90s American indie movement with Tarantino and Kevin Smith, Robert Rodriguez, Richard Linklater, guys who went out there and said, you know, we can make a film for almost nothing and it can still be worthy. And I think a lot of directors have been inspired by those directors, and probably more Tarantino than anyone else, to just go out there and make a film, you know, and start a career and just do it, you know. Just do it! And they did, and Tarantino definitely was a big part of that. And Reservoir Dogs is an amazing film. Just the dialogue, the way it's told, the way he plays with the narrative, you know, jumping back and forth between the timeline, and you know, the cool factor of all the guys, you know, and it's just a great film, great cast. And it's not one that I kind of look to as like, oh, it's just one of my favorite films, or oh, one of the best Tarantino films, but it has to be on the top 5 list because of its importance in the history of cinema, in my opinion, and also just how cool it is and how innovative it was at the time. Just the way he directed and edited scenes, I think, was really, really cool. And you know, he cemented his own style right out of the gate with Reservoir Dogs. It's a great film. And fun note, my dad used to have a band called Reservoir Cats, so yeah, that's pretty cool. Anyway, number 4. Death Proof. Oh, holy shit, he didn't! Death Proof over Reservoir Dogs, yes. What can I say? I love the film. I absolutely love the film. And I'm so hot right now, I need to turn the fan on. I mean, I don't know what it is. Here in Norway, we're just having a heat wave. I mean, it looks dull and cold outside, but it is absolutely roasting. So again, apologies for the fan noise, but I don't think I can make it through this because I have a lot to say about Death Proof. So Death Proof, Tarantino's 2007 film that was part of a double bill feature called Grindhouse, with Robert Rodriguez directing Planet Terror, and Death Proof was the second film in that kind of experiment in a way, and it was kind of harking back to the days of kind of old school B-movie double bill shown in the cinema. And so Death Proof is so just dripping with like 70s rawness, you know. I mean, there's like scratches on the print, you know, there's like editing mistakes, and it just feels very low rent, and it's meant to be. It's meant to evoke those films that Tarantino loves. And Death Proof, to me, it's just such a great film. And I mean, I just read that he said that that's got to be the worst film I've ever made, you know. And I don't think it is. I really don't think it is. Well, again, if you look at his whole filmography, judging it kind of like how good is that film, yeah, it probably is his weakest film, but it's one of my favourites, and it's definitely up there, number 4. I just love every second of it. And if you don't want to be spoiled anything from Death Proof, then I'll put a time code in the description below this video telling you when I get to number 3 in the list, so that you can just skip ahead if you don't want to hear anything about Death Proof. I'm going to talk about the whole film because I think it deserves it. Death Proof has a group of girls in the beginning of the film. We get to know them. They're hanging out. They go to a bar, and they run across this character called Stuntman Mike, played by Kurt Russell. And Stuntman Mike is this, used to be a stuntman. He's got this awesome car, and he talks about how it's death proof. You know, you can drive in this car, you can crash, you can get in the biggest mess ever, but you'll still survive. And he's a very charismatic guy, and he's kind of flirting with the girls and stuff. There's a great scene where they're sat outside and it's raining, and he's got this little book, and he's like, in this book I've written down every person I've ever met. And it's just a great scene. The whole film is just great scene after great scene. The dialogue is great. Again, you're just hanging out with characters, and that's kind of something that Tarantino made a trademark, I think, even with Reservoir Dogs. Just dialogue, you know, nothing that's kind of advancing the plot, but it's just there for you to just see people interacting in somewhat of a realistic manner. I mean, a lot of his dialogue is very rich and you know, sometimes it can be a little bit too much, but there is that realistic edge to it. And in Death Proof, halfway through the film, Stuntman Mike offers to give this girl a ride home, Rose McGowan, and then the other girls that we've been introduced to for the first 45 minutes of the film, they drive off, and he gives Rose McGowan a lift home. And they get to this section, and he's like, are you going left, or are you going right? And I'm paraphrasing here, but she's like, I'm going right, and he's like, I really wish that you'd been going left. And she's like, why? And he's like, because now I'm afraid you're going to have to start getting scared immediately. He turns left. It's amazing. Kurt Russell's one of my favourite actors ever. I think he's amazing. No, he never had like the Oscar-nominated, career-defining performance like De Niro or Pacino or whatever, but he's consistently great in everything he does. He has such a charisma about him. Maybe, I don't know, it's just so good in this film. He's amazing. I'm so excited to see him in the new Tarantino film, The Hateful Eight, coming out in December, or probably be January for the Europe for Europe and the rest of the world, like it was with Django Unchained. Django Unchained came out like Christmas Day 2012, but it didn't come out until 2013 in the UK at least. Anyway, off track. He's awesome in the film, and he's got Rose McGowan in the passenger seat, and he's like, this car's death proof, but to get the advantage of that, you really need to be sitting in my seat. And he just starts driving and braking, and her head's just slamming against the dashboard, and she's getting, it's horrifying, it really is, but it's kind of hilariously horrifying. I love the idea, this sociopathic kind of guy who gets his kicks by basically killing women in automobile accidents in his death-proof car. And then he drives down, he finds the rest of the women that we've been introduced to throughout the film, and he just drives into them and kills them all instantly. One's got a leg hanging out the window, a leg gets chopped off, the car smashes, boom, main cast, dead. Done. What a twist. I loved it. I remember watching it for the first time. It was New Year's Day 2009, I think it was. I was hungover, just watching it with my best friend, and I was just like, that was amazing. I love that so much. And then we get introduced to another set of women. Only these women, they're tough. They're tough chicks. And in that cast you have what's her name, Rosario Dawson, Mary Elizabeth Winstead, and Zoe Bell, another woman, I forget the actress's name, but Zoe Bell kind of steals the show here. She was a stunt woman, and she's doing more acting now, but she was a stunt woman who did stunts for like Lucy Lawless in Xena, the Warrior Princess show. She also did the stunt work for Uma Thurman in the Kill Bill movies. That's why Tarantino knows her, and he cast her in this film as herself. She plays Zoe Bell, the stunt woman, and the other women are playing kind of actresses, and they're kind of driving around and talking about the industry and the business and stuff. And Zoe Bell is this like motorhead, and she's like, you know, talking about Vanishing Point, and she's found this guy who's got this car that's from the film, and she wants to go and test drive it. So they go and they get this car to test drive it, and Stuntman Mike has been preying on them. He's been like following them in his next set of victims, and so we get to kind of know those characters and stuff. And again, I'm going way too in depth on Death Proof here, but I really wanted to give it more time than the other films. And so he finds them, and he chases them down, and he's trying to kill them in his car, but they're tough, and they bring it, and they fight back basically, and he's not expecting it, and then he kind of enjoys it. And then right at the, I mean, there's an amazing car chase scene in the film. I absolutely love it. One of the best car chases, I think, in any film. It's just so good when you got Zoe Bell literally hanging on the boot of the car as it's just driving down these kind of country roads. It's just incredible stunt work, and again, all real stuff, real kind of, you know, cars and stuff like that, and a couple of crashes. And the bit I loved more than anything was the very ending, where Stuntman Mike is like, okay, I've bitten off more than I can chew here. And they kind of have a little kind of crash, and he gets out of his car, and he's like, whoa, that was great, you know, that was a lot of fun. Okay, I'm going. He wants to get out of the situation. And they just shoot him in the arm. And like any typical kind of movie character you'd expect to just kind of shrug it off and keep going, he is like, ah, he's like screaming like a girl. It's amazing. It is so, I mean, it's just it's the natural reaction. If you get shot in the arm, you're going to be screaming, you're going to be, you know, scared shitless. And he played it perfectly, and then they just beat the shit out of him at the end, give him an axe kick to the face, done, film's over. I mean, it's so ridiculous. It's an explosion of cinema, and I fucking loved it. Number 3, Pulp Fiction. Oh, Pulp Fiction number 3. Wow, yeah. Well, you know, again, this list is very different. It's very unique, and it's my taste and my ranking of the Tarantino films. I put a lot of thought into it on how I enjoy them. Pulp Fiction is number 3. An incredible film. I remember when I was a kid, my mum was talking about how amazing it was to one of her friends. Like, you haven't seen Pulp Fiction? You've got to see Pulp Fiction. You're coming over tonight watching Pulp Fiction. And I remember sitting in my bedroom at like, I don't know, 10 o'clock at night, all the lights are off, and I'm just kind of listening to the film and stuff. And I was always intrigued by it. She had the VHS and stuff. And then I eventually saw it and was blown away by it. I mean, it's great. Again, typical Tarantino, playing with the narrative, going backwards and forwards, and different timelines and different stories, and an amazing cast. You know, the music is fantastic. I mean, I think it's probably his best film still. I really do. And that scene between John Travolta and Uma Thurman in Jackrabbit Slim's, the restaurant, in fact, the whole sequence they have together in the film, that block, for me, is one of my favorite kind of sequences / scenes of any film. I love the chemistry, I love the dialogue, everything about it is awesome, and the film itself, from top to bottom, it's just a masterpiece. It's so well written, so fun, so violent, you know, but it just works on every level. It's an amazing film. Number 2, Kill Bill. Oh yeah, Kill Bill, both Volume 1 and 2. I count it as one film, and when Tarantino finally gets off his arse and takes his finger out of it and releases the whole bloody affair on Blu-ray, then we'll get the full 4-hour cut of Kill Bill, which is what I want to have and own and watch. But as it is, I love both films. I give Volume 2 the edge. I know a lot of people prefer Volume 1, there's more action, but I like the character stuff in Volume 2. I like how it is more dialogue heavy and more about just the story. And when you get to David Carradine as Bill, I mean, it's just golden from start to finish of every scene he's in. He is incredible as Bill in these films. He's only in like the Volume 1 for like maybe 20 seconds, and it's his voice, but you know, Volume 2 is fantastic. But the whole, I just count it as one big epic, you know, and it draws on so many different things, you know, Japanese movies, which I'm a huge fan of, and kind of you know, the master and apprentice relationship, the revenge film, you know, and yeah, a bit of a mystery element to it as well at times, and just all the different timelines that are played around with, again, very much like Pulp Fiction and Reservoir Dogs, but taken to the nth degree. You see all these different moments in the bride's life, played by Uma Thurman, who's amazing in the role. And you get just like, again, just I forget the name now, the assassination squad that tried to kill her, and I guess in the beginning of the film, but in the beginning of the timeline, basically, of the whole story. And you know, it's just fun seeing, you know, the bride track down every member on the list to take them out, like Lucy Liu and what's her name, Daryl Hannah and Michael Madsen, and so you get all these people that she's going after, and it's just, I love everything about it, and from start to finish, brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. And the ending of Volume 2 with Bill and the bride, I mean, it's like a half-hour scene of them in his house, and it's just all dialogue, and I'm just in heaven every time I watch it. The dialogue is fantastic, and there's a Superman bit in the film which I really like, the Superman monologue by Bill, and then the very ending of the film when they're sat together, and it's one of my favorite quotes of all time. I absolutely love it. I won't kind of set it up, but basically, you know, Bill says to the bride, he says, well, how does he lead into it? He's like, yeah, well, why did you never tell me? And she's like, I don't know, because I'm a bad person. And he replies, you're not a bad person. You're a terrific person. You're my favorite person. But every once in a while, you can be a real cunt. And at that point, I'm just like, what a great line. What a great line and a great ending, and just, yeah. And it also shows how Tarantino can take so many elements from other films and reference them, and you know, have homages to them, and borrow heavily from them, and mix them all together in a big mashup that works in its own right, you know. It doesn't feel like, oh, he's ripping all these other, you know, films off. It feels like he's creating his own unique kind of amalgamation of everything that he loves. And that's something I respect about him so much, is that, you know, he basically does and makes films that he wants to see, and I love that. And so number 1, my favorite Tarantino film, and there's 3 options here, so either Inglourious Basterds, Jackie Brown, or Django Unchained. What is it going to be? Jackie Brown. Absolutely, without a doubt, Jackie Brown, far and away. I love this film so much. I've said this a lot now. I mean, I'm a huge fan of Tarantino. He just makes great, enjoyable films. I mean, it's down to the dialogue, it's down to the direction, the way it's presented, the way it's shot, edited, everything. And this one is my favorite by far. Cast once again is amazing. He always has great cast, but I mean, you got like Michael Keaton, Pam Grier, you got Robert Forster, who's an incredible actor, Sam Jackson, Robert De Niro. It goes on and on, and there's just great scenes throughout the film. There's a little bit of playing with the narrative, but not too much, and I just love the story. It's basically a love story that's very delicately told, but then you have all the violence and stuff and kind of the crime going on. It's an adaptation of is it Rum Punch, I believe, Elmore Leonard novel. I have the novel. I never read it. I bought it once, but it's a great story, and I just love where it goes. I love every little moment, every beat, every time it goes to something else. I'm like, oh, I love this bit. Oh, I love that bit. You know, AK-47 when you absolutely positively have to kill every motherfucker in the room, except no substitute. The dialogue's great. Sam Jackson just almost chewing up the scenery with this role with his long hair and everything. He's just he's brilliant. And De Niro is just so deadpan funny in the film as well. It's just great. And also Jackie Brown, it kind of very heavily alludes to the films, the blaxploitation films that Pam Grier herself did in the early 70s, both Coffy and Foxy Brown. And there's actually some music used from Coffy, in Jackie Brown, which I realized when I watched Coffy a few months ago. So I love that connection, and I love, again, Tarantino. He just makes films that he kind of wants to see, and he borrows from stuff that he loves and makes his own thing, puts his own spin on it. And he's so down to earth as well. I remember on the DVD of Jackie Brown, which I got years ago, and I watched all the special features like in one day, and there's one interview where he's talking about how he goes to the cinema when a film is released. I don't know if that's the same now, but back in the 90s he used to. He'd just go into a regular everyday screening of one of his films. He'd sit there, he'd watch it with an audience, see how they react to it, and he said that that time, and you know, just after Jackie Brown came out, the favourite review, the best review he's ever gotten from a film that he's made, was when he was leaving the theatre after Jackie Brown one night, and there was these two women there, and one woman said, "Did you just see Jackie Brown?" And she's like, "Yeah, I did." And she says, "Wasn't it good?" And Tarantino was like, "That's the best review I've ever had," you know. And I love that. I love how he just wants to entertain people and make the shit that he likes, and that's it really. You know, I mean, when he won the Oscar for Django Unchained, he turned up, his tie was halfway around his neck. He doesn't give a shit. He just makes films because he loves it, basically, and that is what I love about him, and I love his films. And Inglourious Basterds is great. You know, I think Christoph Waltz is amazing in that film. Definitely need to give it a rewatch. I've only seen it once. In Django Unchained, I love that film as well. I've seen it twice. Great performances, but didn't quite make the top 5 for me. So we've got The Hateful Eight coming out in December. Can't wait for that. I'm sure everyone else is really excited for it. I'm glad that Tarantino actually made it, because there was that kind of confusion whether he was not going to make it because someone had leaked the script. So yeah, great cast in that one as well. Kurt Russell, again, can't wait to see him in another Tarantino film. Bruce Dern, Tim Roth, Sam Jackson again. It's going to be incredible. So that's my top 5 Tarantino films. Let me know what your top 5 are. If you have any suggestions for future top 5 videos, leave them in the comments down below. I do note them down. I put them in a list, and when I feel like the time is right for me to do them, I will, and I'll credit you in the video. And yeah, talk about Tarantino. Again, keep the comments nice and kind of mature, and don't get too hostile over the fact that I put Death Proof, you know, anywhere near this top 5 list. But hey, I love it. That's it for now, and I will see you next time. Oh, and also thank you to my highest pledging Patreon supporters, Jody Wood, Ryan Chataway, Vezius, and Cineram. Thanks a lot. Really appreciate the support on Patreon. It's a real big help. And if anyone else wants to join in with that, there's a link in the description. But as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.
So you might say he's a really nice guy, really, but if fucking don't cut shit with me. He says he's really cool, but I think he's a tool.